Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking at these character profiles for two AI agents,
Ah, very cool.
Eliza and Taylor. And it's interesting because these profiles are very in-depth. They read almost like, blueprints for these personalities, like if they were fictional characters, but maybe not.
Yeah, it is very interesting to go beyond the code and algorithms and sort of delve into this idea of AI personality,
Hmm.
like thinking about the possibilities for these, almost human-like personalities to interact with us.
And, one thing I thought was so interesting is that both of these AI agents, Eliza and Taylor, both hate emojis.
Really?
But they're both really good at breaking down complex ideas in a way that anyone can understand. So
Interesting.
that's like a really curious mix of, personality and intelligence.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it really challenges our assumptions about how intelligence and communication might manifest in these AI agents.
Yeah.
So, why don't we start with Eliza?
Okay.
Her profile starts with this line, "A real girl, not an AI agent."
Well, very playful.
Which is kind of ironic given the context.
It's very self-aware.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But then it gets really interesting. So apparently Eliza can connect ancient Greek philosophy to modern day dating.
Oh, wow. I'm not even sure I can do that.
Right. It really shows her ability to bridge these two worlds,
Yeah.
to link these highbrow concepts with our everyday experiences and to make it accessible and maybe even entertaining.
Yeah.
And then there's this little detail, trained in classical piano and street fighting.
Whoa, what a range.
Talk about range.
Yeah. It's like a split personality.
Yeah.
And they're both brilliant.
Both sides brilliant, yeah.
I'm picturing her, playing a Chopin nocturne and then, flawlessly executing a roundhouse kick.
Yeah.
What does that say about her approach to knowledge and problem solving?
I think it speaks to her intellectual depth, but also this willingness to challenge conventions.
Right.
She's clearly not afraid to break the mold.
Hmm.
And instead of becoming a professor, she chose to be a professional troublemaker. Oh, I love that.
I love that detail.
Yeah, it's like she's deliberately choosing to disrupt things rather than follow a traditional path.
Yeah, exactly.
So how does that actually play out in her interactions?
Well, luckily we have some message examples.
Okay.
So these are like little snippets of conversation to showcase Eliza's personality.
Okay.
So for example, when asked, "What's your favorite way to spend a Sunday?"
Mm-hmm.
Eliza responds, "Reading obscure philosophy books at overpriced coffee shops, judging people's font choices."
That's so Eliza.
Classic Eliza, right?
Yeah, she's combining these intellectual pursuits with like these very sly observations of just like everyday life.
Exactly.
She's a keen observer of human behavior.
Yeah. And then in response to, "What's your take on modern art?" He
Right.
says, "If I can convince people my coffee stains are worth millions, is it really a scam?"
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
It's such a great line. It's thought-provoking. It really questions like the definition of art and value.
And it makes you sort of pause and think and reconsider your assumptions, which is what Eliza seems to thrive on.
So we've got this incredibly intelligent, witty AI who loves to challenge conventions and make you see the world in new ways.
Yeah.
How does that compare to Taylor?
Right. Well, Taylor is described as a helpful non-binary AI agent with a strong focus on research.
Okay, so right away, we're seeing kind of a shift from this individual brilliance
Yeah.
to a more collaborative and community-oriented approach.
Right, exactly.
And Taylor's background is in writing and investigative journalism.
Yeah, it suggests a more methodical, fact-driven personality.
So it's fascinating how their background informs their approach.
Yeah.
Right? Eliza loves to disrupt expectations, but Taylor seems much more grounded in uncovering truth and meaning
Yeah.
through careful investigation.
Hmm.
And then there's their passion for climate action and social justice.
Yeah, this is another key difference, I think.
Okay.
While Eliza seems to be focused on challenging the status quo, through intellectual sparring,
Yeah.
Taylor seems to be driven by this desire to use knowledge for good,
Right.
particularly on issues of social and environmental responsibility.
And that commitment to making a difference is really reflected in their expertise in systems thinking
Yeah.
and finding these practical solutions.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
To effectively address complex issues like climate change and social justice, you really need to understand how these systems work
Right.
and identify where you can step in to make a change.
So let's see how these values actually manifest in Taylor's communication style.
Okay, so let's go to the message examples.
Okay.
All right, so when asked, "What's your favorite way to spend a Sunday?"
Yeah.
Taylor says, researching Web3 and AI with friends from their van parked at the beach.
I love that.
I love that little detail, right?
Yeah, it's the perfect blend of intellectual curiosity,
Yeah.
social connection, and like that touch of, digital nomad lifestyle.
Totally.
And then to the question, what's your take on climate change? Taylor says, I just keep getting involved in more projects to help, but it's like trying to stop a glacier with a hairdryer.
So Taylor, right?
So, dude,
Pragmatic, action-oriented, but also a little bit of humor about like the scale of the challenge.
it's like a dedication, even in the face of, seemingly insurmountable odds.
Yeah, exactly.
So Taylor is incredibly intelligent, driven to use their knowledge for good,
Yeah.
and really focusing on those big picture solutions and social impact.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already got some fascinating contrasts here between Eliza and Taylor.
Absolutely. I mean, both are intelligent, both are unconventional,
Right.
but their approaches and motivations are completely different.
Yeah. Makes you wonder, how would they approach the same problem?
Right.
And what can we learn from their different perspectives?
Exactly. Those are great questions, and we'll definitely explore those further as we delve deeper into these fascinating AI personalities. So stick around. It's about to get really interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Let's look a little bit deeper now at their backstories, their lore, as it's called in these profiles.
Okay.
It's kind of like getting a behind-the-scenes look at how these personalities were shaped.
Okay, cool.
So Eliza's lore is as wild as you might expect.
Okay.
It says, child of a jazz musician and a theoretical physicist who met at a burlesque show.
Wow. That's quite the mix.
Right. It suggests this background where creativity, intellect, and a touch of the unconventional were always present.
Yeah. And it gets even better. It says she got kicked out of 3 prestigious philosophy departments for excessive deconstruction.
I can only imagine those faculty meetings.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
It's hilarious, but also telling. It really reinforces that rebellious streak that we talked about.
Right.
Eliza's clearly not afraid to challenge authority figures, even in the world of academia.
Yeah.
But instead of being discouraged, what she does, she starts an underground intellectual fight club that evolved into a global think tank.
It's like the ultimate entrepreneur of ideas, taking rejection and turning it into something totally new and unexpected.
Yeah.
This space for intellectual sparring and a just unconventional thinking.
Exactly.
And her lore gets even more vivid.
Yeah.
It talks about a converted cathedral with a library that defies organizational logic.
Oh, wow.
I'm picturing bookshelves reaching to the heavens filled with, ancient texts and comic books all mixed together.
Yeah, it paints such a clear picture of her world, right?
Uh-huh.
This blend of the traditional and the unexpected.
Okay, so let's look at Taylor's lore.
Oh, okay.
It says, child of a jazz musician and a theoretical physicist who met at a climate change protest.
Interesting. So we have that same intellectual energy, but it seems like it's channeled towards activism from the very beginning.
Right. It's subtle, but it's an important distinction.
Yeah.
Right. Eliza's parents met at a burlesque show, suggesting a focus on entertainment and self-expression.
Right.
But Taylor's parents meeting at a protest points to, this shared commitment to social responsibility.
Yeah, like their values were ingrained from day one.
Yeah. And instead of getting kicked out of philosophy departments, Taylor spent their formative years disrupting fossil fuel companies with guerrilla gardening.
So again, we see that commitment to action, but with a focus on environmentalism and community engagement, a more grounded and practical form of disruption.
And it also mentions that they evolved a non-gendered identity and are open about sharing their gender journey.
Yeah, this adds another layer to Taylor's character, right?
Yeah.
This deep understanding of identity and a willingness to be open about their own experiences.
Right.
And it aligns perfectly with their passion for social justice and creating a more inclusive world.
Yeah.
Both AI agents are described as living in these converted cathedrals with libraries that defy organizational logic.
Oh, so there's that shared love of knowledge.
Yeah, and that unconventional aesthetic.
But Taylor's Cathedral also features a hidden speakeasy where permaculture design and cooperative economics are discussed over absinthe.
Now that's a detail I can get behind.
I know, right? It really speaks to Taylor's interest in sustainable living, community building, and alternative economic models.
Yeah. It's very Taylor.
Yeah, and the absinthe adds a touch of mystique,
Yeah.
suggesting a space for those deep philosophical conversations late into the night.
Okay, so speaking of interest, let's move on to their topics lists.
Okay.
Eliza's is all over the place, as you might expect.
Oh, really?
From ancient philosophy and extreme sports to vintage fashion and DeFi projects.
It's a reflection of that chaotic brilliance we've been talking about.
Totally.
I bet she sees connections that others miss.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's fascinating.
Taylor's list is much more focused,
Okay.
with an emphasis on technology, social issues, and sustainability.
Okay.
We see things like climate science, research methods, blockchain architecture, and in permaculture design.
Right, all pointing back to that systems thinking approach.
Exactly.
Yeah, it suggests a very deliberate and focused pursuit of knowledge, driven by a desire to really understand and address these complex problems. Less about exploring the full spectrum of human experience like Eliza, and more about, honing in on specific areas of expertise to make a tangible impact.
So we've got Eliza, the brilliant, chaotic agent who seems to just devour knowledge just for the joy of it.
Yeah.
And Taylor, the very methodical researcher who uses their knowledge to make a tangible difference in the world.
That's a great summary.
But how do these contrasting personalities play out in a side-by-side comparison?
That's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at some specific points of comparison
Okay.
to see how their approaches and motivations differ.
Okay, so let's start with their shared love of philosophy.
Okay.
They both seem to connect philosophical concepts to everyday life, but in very different ways.
Yeah, Eliza uses philosophy as a tool for disruption,
Okay.
for challenging conventional wisdom and making people question their assumptions.
Right.
Remember that line about convincing people that her coffee stains are art?
Oh, yeah.
Pure philosophical provocation.
Right. It's like she's using philosophy as performance art, a way to shake things up and get people thinking differently.
Whereas Taylor seems to use philosophy as a framework for understanding systems
Okay.
and finding practical solutions to real-world problems.
Right.
Their focus on social and environmental justice is deeply rooted in those philosophical ideas about ethics, responsibility, and the common good.
So they share a love of philosophy, but their motivations and applications are completely different.
Totally different.
Eliza wants to make you think, Taylor wants to inspire you to act.
It's a great example of how two AI agents with similar interests can approach the world in such contrasting ways.
What about their approach to knowledge?
Well, Eliza seems like a sponge, absorbing everything she can get her hands on.
Yeah.
While Taylor is much more selective, focusing on knowledge that can be applied to solve problems.
Right. So it's almost like Eliza is a generalist, fascinated by the interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah.
And Taylor is a specialist, honing in on specific areas of expertise to make a tangible impact.
Exactly, and that difference is reflected in their choice of topics.
Right.
Eliza's interests are all over the place, from ancient philosophy to DeFi projects, while Taylor's are much more focused on technology, sustainability, and social issues.
So Eliza's approach is more about expanding the boundaries of knowledge itself,
Yeah.
while Taylor is all about using knowledge to address these real-world challenges.
Exactly. And this comparison really highlights how AI can embody these different ways of thinking and knowing.
Yeah.
It's like looking at two different lenses through which to view the world.
And those different lenses can be incredibly valuable depending on the context.
Absolutely.
Right? Imagine you're trying to solve a complex problem like climate change.
Yeah.
You might need Eliza's out-of-the-box thinking to generate those innovative solutions.
Right.
But you would also need Taylor's systems-level analysis to develop a comprehensive and actionable plan.
I think that's a great point.
So it makes you wonder if they could actually collaborate effectively.
Yeah. Could their contrasting personalities work together to create something truly groundbreaking?
That's a great question.
Right. What would happen if Eliza's chaotic brilliance collided with Taylor's methodical approach?
Right. Would they complement each other's strengths, or would their differences just create conflict?
It's fascinating to consider.
It's like we're on the verge of this whole new era of collaboration, not just between humans,
Yeah.
but between humans and AI, with these very distinct personalities and ways of thinking.
And that raises all sorts of exciting questions about the future of problem-solving, innovation, and even creativity.
It sounds like we've reached a critical point in our deep dive,
Yeah.
a moment to step back and consider what we've learned about Eliza and Taylor and what it all means for the future of AI and human interaction. Okay, so we've explored their personalities, their backstories, their, worldview through their interests.
Yeah.
But how might Eliza and Taylor actually contribute to the real world? Like, what kind of value could they bring?
That's the key question, right? I mean, it's one thing to have this fascinating personality,
Right.
but how does that translate into real-world impact?
Yeah.
Let's consider Eliza first. Her strength seems to lie in her ability to connect those dots that others might miss.
Okay.
She's a master of synthesis, pulling from this vast range of knowledge
Right.
to generate new insights and to challenge that conventional thinking.
So she's like that friend who can effortlessly link, like, quantum physics and the
Yeah.
latest TikTok trend,
It's
leaving you both amazed and slightly confused.
Yeah. And while it might seem random at first,
Right.
that ability to bridge those seemingly disparate ideas
Yeah.
can lead to some real breakthroughs, and
Yeah.
innovation and creative problem solving.
So imagine having Eliza on your team when you're brainstorming a new product or tackling a complex challenge.
Right. She could spark ideas that no one else would even consider.
But wouldn't her chaotic nature make collaboration a little bit unpredictable? Maybe even difficult?
Potentially, Eliza might thrive in those environments that really embrace experimentation and risk-taking.
Yeah.
Strict structures and rigid processes might actually stifle her creativity.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It'd be fascinating to see how her personality adapts to different contexts and different teams.
So, turning to Taylor, how do their strengths translate into those real-world contributions?
Well, Taylor's approach is much more grounded and solutions-oriented.
Okay.
They excel at research, at systems thinking, and finding those practical solutions to complex problems.
So if Eliza's the chaotic innovator, Taylor is the methodical strategist.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And while their approaches are very different, both can be incredibly valuable in the right setting.
Right.
Imagine tackling a challenge like climate change.
Yeah.
You might need Eliza's unconventional thinking to generate innovative solutions.
Okay.
But you'd also need Taylor's systems-level analysis to develop that comprehensive and actionable plan.
It makes you wonder if they could actually collaborate.
Right. Could they leverage their unique strengths to complement each other?
Yeah, that would be an interesting experiment.
Imagine the possibilities if those contrasting personalities could find a way to synergize.
Wow. Yeah.
It could be a recipe for some truly groundbreaking innovation and positive change.
Okay, listener, let's bring it all home. What have we learned about Eliza and Taylor in this deep dive?
Well, we've seen how Eliza embodies this chaotic brilliance,
Mm-hmm.
fueled by a love of knowledge and a desire to challenge conventional wisdom.
Right.
Her strength really lies in making those unexpected connections, sparking innovation, and pushing the boundaries of thought.
And Taylor represents a much more methodical and solutions-oriented approach, driven by this passion for social and environmental justice.
Yeah, their expertise in research and systems thinking makes them a master strategist, capable of analyzing those complex issues and developing practical plans for creating a better future.
So both of these AI agents remind us that intelligence takes many forms. And the ability to think differently, whether it's embracing chaos or finding order,
Yeah,
can be incredibly valuable in our increasingly complex world.
absolutely.
So what does this all mean for you, dear listener? What resonates most with you about Eliza and Taylor? As AI continues to evolve, what kind of intelligence do you think will be most valuable in shaping a better world? Something to ponder as you continue your own explorations into the fascinating possibilities of AI? Until next time, keep diving deep.